I should have that freedom. But conservatives don't want me to have that freedom. They do not want me to have that freedom. Conservatives are anti-freedom. They're pro-boxes. It is time for a very scary book report. Bum, bum, bum. This is the Project 2025. It is a very scary fictional book that was written by the Heritage Foundation. It is a cookbook for authoritarianism. You've heard of the Anarchist's Cookbook. You've heard of this. It is a book that was banned, probably legitimately, because it told you how to make bombs. Not a good thing. The Anarchist's Cookbook. This is the Authoritarian's Cookbook, because what is in this book describes how to get rid of the deep state and replace it with an ideological right-wing conservative Christian deep state. Great. Nothing wrong with that sentence, right? That sounds exciting. So, we have done many chapters. Today we are looking at chapter number 14 about the DHS. So the DHS is a thing. It exists. I think it's an okay thing. Republicans want it to look shockingly different than it does right now. What we'll do is I'll read just this first part by Roger Severino and yell at him because this is filled with nonsense. And then we won't go into the very specific details, but if you want, you can read this and see the absolute, very tiny little details that they want for this department. The plan is to get a Republican elected, then put this into practice. Give this to the next Republican president and just say, read it, follow it. You will never lose another election again. Yeah, you won't lose another election again because you won't let another election happen. Correct. She said they'll never let it happen. The government will just be filled with people who agree with you, and then then when you tell them there's no election this year, they'll be like, yeah, we totally agree. That's the plan. That's what they want and that's what Donald Trump will do. He won't read it. God, no, I don't think he can read. But he will give it to somebody who can, like Stephen Miller. And then he would say, okay, follow this to the letter. And guess what? This is that death of democracy that all those people were talking about earlier in the stream. This is it. They've laid out the plans for it. You can read it. And I am. So, Department of Health and Human Services by Roger Severino. Roger Severino. If the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services were a separate country, its approximately $1.6 trillion budget would rank as the world's fifth largest national budget. For good or ill, HHS activities personally impact the lives of more Americans than do those of any other federal agency. Under President Trump, HHS was dedicated to serving all Americans from conception to natural death, including those individuals and families who face economic and social well-being challenges. Under President Biden, the mission has shifted to promoting equity in everything we do for the sake of populations sharing a particular characteristic, including race, sexuality, gender identification, and ethnicity, and a host of other categories. Well, they probably changed it because of the word conception here, Roger. As a result of the HHS having lost its way, the U.S. life expectancy, instead of returning to normal after COVID-19 pandemic, continued to drop precipitously to levels not seen since 1996, with white populations alone losing 7% of their expected lifespan in just 1 year. Not the white populations! Oh no! You guys, the white populations are losing 7% of their expected lifespan. This is just science, Roger. You don't know what science is. And it's probably to do with capitalists forcing us to eat sugar all day long. Just saying. Nothing less than an American long-term survival is at stake. So when white populations lose years, the long-term survival of the country is at stake. Accordingly, HHS must return to servicing the health and well-being of all Americans at all stages of life instead of using social engineering that leaves us sicker, poorer, and more divided. You gonna push for universal health care, Roger? No? I don't think you are. The HHS consists of 11 operating divisions that have varying degrees of practical independence, from the Secretary of Health and Human Services to 15 staff divisions, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's his goals. Goal number 1, protecting life, conscience, and bodily integrity. The Secretary should pursue a robust agenda to protect the fundamentalist right to life, protect conscience rights, okay, and uphold bodily integrity rooted in biological realities, not ideology. Bum, bum, bum. No more trans people. That's what that means. Biological realities, not ideology. This means no trans people. From the moment of conception, every human being possesses inherent dignity. What? And worth. And our humanity does not depend on our age, state of development, race, or abilities. The Secretary must ensure that all HHS programs and activities are rooted in deep respect for innocent human life from day one until natural death. Abortion and euthanasia are not health care. They are, though. Roger, you're wrong. A robust respect for the sacred right of conscience. Conscience, what is this that he's talking about? I don't even know what he's talking about. Both at the HHS and among government institutions funded by it, increased choices for patients and program beneficiaries, and further pluralism and tolerance. I don't know what he's saying. The Secretary must protect American civil rights by ensuring the HHS programs and activities follow the letter and spirit of religious freedom and conscience protection laws. Okay, I think I've got it. Religious freedom means that there are religions that don't want certain things to happen to them once they're in the hospital, but that's really dumb. Generally, it's the religious freedom of the hospital to tell the patients what they cannot do. That is what he's talking about. He wants to empower Catholics to own hospitals and then deny the patients the things they want because it's against the Catholic religion. That's what he's pushing for. That is what he's talking about with his conscience protection laws. He wants every doctor in the country to have to go through a political class and follow his political ideology. Roger, this guy right here, wants you to go to the doctor and the doctor to have a religion and a conscience that will tell you what you can and cannot do. Again, this is Republicans controlling people. That's what they do. They tell you all day long that they're the Freedom Party. Republicans all day long tell me they're the party of freedom. Yet I read their policies and they lower freedom. They lessen the freedom the Americans have. You're not allowed to be trans. You're not allowed to marry somebody of the same sex. You're not allowed to get abortions. You're not allowed to transition. You're not allowed to go see a doctor who's going to help you transition. You're not allowed to wear the clothes that you want. You're not allowed to wear earrings, flashy, shiny earrings if you're a man. You're not allowed to do that. If you have a dinger between your legs, you are not allowed to wear shiny earrings. You're not allowed. They create, what the conservatives do is create boxes. And those boxes fit them comfortably, which is fine. But sometimes people don't want to be in that box, or they don't feel comfortable in that box, and so they would like the freedom to escape that box and do something else. Do I have the freedom to put a shiny golden earring in my ear? In the 40s or 50s, I really wouldn't have that freedom. There are masculine earrings. There are men with earrings, obviously. There are feminine earrings too, right? Do I have the freedom to put a feminine earring? I don't want to, but if I wanted to, would I have the freedom to put a shiny, dangly, golden chandelier style earring on my ear? On both ears. I should have that freedom. But conservatives don't want me to have that freedom. They do not want me to have that freedom. Conservatives are anti-freedom. They're pro-boxes. And the reason they do it is because they think it's more orderly. The world is very complicated and chaotic if you just run around doing whatever you want. So they need boxes, they need rules, and order. I believe they do want order, but they want order to be boxes that they agree to. A straight guy wants to wear a dress. They don't like it. It doesn't fit within their boxes. And now I'm ranting about freedom. They are the anti-freedom party. When they say religious freedom, they just mean that the religion gets to tell other people what to do. If you have freedom, you don't need this term religious freedom because you would obviously have the freedom. When conservatives use the word religious freedom, that means the religion has the freedom to tell you what to do and change what you're doing based on our boxes. Radical actors inside and outside government are promoting harmful identity politics that replaces biological sex with subjective notions of gender identity and bases a person's worth on his or her race, sex, or other identities. These destructive dogma, under the guise of equity, threatens Americans' fundamental liberties as well as the health and well-being of children and adults alike. The next Secretary must ensure that the HHS programs protect children's minds and bodies, and that HHS programs respect patients' basic right to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their children. Again, conservatives think they own their children. Conservatives think they own their children. I get to direct the upbringing, the education, and the care. You get to direct that, but you don't get to isolate them from reality. That's actually severely harmful. If you have a kid who has never heard of any of these things and leaves your protective bubble, they're going to have a bad time. They're not prepared for the real world. They're going to freak out a little bit. And this is what happens when, I talk about it every damn week, when kids from small towns go to a college. They learn that there's a different world out there. It's a different world. Everything is different. The people here aren't like the people I grew up with. And then they go wild. And then they start having some freedom. And then they come back home for Thanksgiving, and Uncle Roger is very unhappy. He used to be a good kid, and then he went to college and became a screaming liberal. It's because he had freedom now. You did not give him freedom. You protected him. You built a wall around him and forced him into a box. Anti-freedom. Goal number 2, empowering patient choices and provider autonomy. The patient choice is to get sick and die or pay a lot of money. And the provider autonomy is going to be the provider will be allowed to turn you down for things they don't politically agree with. Basic economics holds that a cost trend to decrease the quality and options tend to increase when there is a robust and free competition in the provision of goods and services. Healthcare is no exception. Yes, it is. Motherfucker. If cancer treatment costs $1, you'll pay it. If it costs $100, you'll pay it to stay alive. If it costs $1,000, you will pay it to stay alive. If it costs $1 million, you will pay it to stay alive. There is no amount of money that you would not give to keep your children alive. That is why healthcare is different than buying a skateboard. Would I pay $1 for a skateboard for my kid? Yes. Would I pay $1,000 for a skateboard for my kid? No. Competition works in this situation. Competition works with buying skateboards. I can go and find out which ones work, which ones have different wheel bearings or whatnot, which ones look good, which ones are too expensive, which ones are cheaper, which ones will break more easily. That is competition. I cannot do that with cancer medications, Roger. I cannot do that with cancer meds. And I shouldn't. This one costs more, but it does a little bit better of a job. That's the one I want. That's the one that we need to keep the children alive. There is no amount of money that I wouldn't give to keep the kids alive. Jesus Christ, he doesn't... They think it's just a regular economy. You can just go and pick out whichever cancer med you want. No, motherfucker. Of course, providers who deliver healthcare also need the freedom to address the unique needs of their patients. States should be the primary regulators of the medical profession, and the federal government should not restrict providers' abilities to discharge their responsibilities or limit their ability to innovate through government pricing controls or irrational Medicare or Medicaid reimbursement schemes. Discharge their responsibilities. This is what I'm saying. He wants your doctor to be able to shoot your ass down for political reasons. He wants to give your doctor the ability to turn your ass down because you're too woke. Finally, America's broken insurance system, run largely through confusing provider networks and third-party payers, introduces overconsumption of healthcare. What? Limits consumer shopping and hides true costs from the patients. Yes, that's capitalism, baby. This is a capitalist problem you're dealing with right here. The federal government should focus reform on reducing burdens of regulatory compliance. Good God. Unleashing innovation in healthcare delivery and ceasing interference in the daily lives of patients and providers, allowing alternative insurance coverage options, and returning control of healthcare dollars to patients making decisions with their provider about their healthcare treatments and services. Okay, regulatory compliance. If the federal government doesn't do regulatory compliance, the companies will just steal all the money. The health insurance companies make money by taking it and not giving it out. If there is no federal requirements, they will take all the money and they will give out less. Capitalism. The problem with our current medical system is capitalism. And this motherfucker wants to supercharge that capitalism. Get the government out of the way. Let the companies do whatever the damn hell they want. You are a insurance company, you can do whatever you want. There is no federal regulations stopping you from taking all the money and giving none out. Nothing. Will it be bad for business? Maybe. But if it's good for your business for the next quarter, then they'll fucking do it. Goal number 3, promoting stable, flourishing, married families. What the fuck is this? Families comprised of a married mother, father, and their children are the foundation of a well-ordered nation and healthy societies. Unfortunately, family policies and programs under President Biden's HHS are fraught with agenda items focusing on LGBTQ equity, subsidizing single motherhood, disincentivizing work, and penalizing marriage. These policies should be repealed and replaced by policies that support the formation of stable, married, nuclear families. This is some Nazi shit right here. But this is some Nazi shit. If you are part of the LGBTQ, according to this, you are lesser. You are a lesser part. You are less important. You are less than a married family. If you are divorced, you are less than a flourishing married family. If you do not fit within this married mother, married father, and their children foundation, you are a second-class citizen. You are not important. The things that your issues are out. Subsidizing single motherhood, because generally they have less money, they need help. Fine. The weakest among us need the most help. That doesn't punish you. Disincentivizing work. Horseshit. Republican nonsense. No one's disincentivizing work. If people don't want to work, it's because they're not being paid enough. You can get anybody to do anything with the right amount of money. Does that hurt the CEO's bottom line? Yeah, maybe. So he needs to work on that. This is a capitalism problem, not a government one. And penalizing marriage. I've been married for 22 years. I've never been penalized by anybody other than my wife. My wife penalizing marriage is not a thing. It's never happened. I implore some conservatives to tell me how marriages are being penalized. How are marriages being penalized? Tell me in the comments, please. I've never heard of such a thing. I've never seen such a thing. I've been married for a very long time and I've never seen anybody penalizing marriage. This is some straight up Nazi shit. I don't like it. Working fathers are essential to the well-being and development of their children. Working fathers, only the fathers. But the United States is experiencing a crisis of fatherlessness that is ruining our children's futures. In the overwhelming number of cases, fathers insulate children from physical and sexual abuse. They're the ones who do it most of the time. Financial difficulty or poverty, incarceration, teen pregnancy, poor educational outcomes, high school failure, and a host of behavior and psychological problems. By contrast, homes with non-related boyfriends present are among the most dangerous places for a child to be. HHS would prioritize married father engagement in its messaging, health, and welfare policies. You must fit within the box. These are the boxes I discussed. You must fit within this box, or else you're a degenerate. If you do not fit within these boxes, you are a problem. If you do not fit within these boxes that we have drawn, we have set, you are part of the problem and you are denigrated to a second-class citizen. Nazi shit. Goal number 4, preparing for the next healthy emergency. Oh no, COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated how catastrophic a micromanaging, misinformed, centralized, and politicized federal government can be. Basic human rights, medical choice, and the doctor-patient relationship were trampled without scientific justification and for extended periods of time. Excess deaths not due to COVID-19 skyrocketed because of forced lockdowns. No, motherfucker. They went up because the hospital was busy. Isolation, vaccine-related mass firings, and colossal disruptions of the economy and daily rhythms of life. The excess deaths, not due to COVID-19, skyrocketed because all the hospitals were busy with COVID. It wasn't because of isolation. It wasn't because of vaccine-related mass firings. How does a vaccine-related mass firing kill you? How does I got fired, now I'm dead. I refused the vaccine, now I'm fired, now I'm dead. That's nonsense. That's fear-mongering. Colossal disruptions to the economy and the daily rhythms of life. COVID did that. And it doesn't help that Republicans are out screaming about how they're not going to follow certain rules. That's not helping, Roger. That's not helping. The federal government's public health apparatus has lost the public trust because you keep telling us it's lying and you refuse to follow its rules. Before the next national public health emergency, this apparatus must be fundamentally restructured to ensure a transparent, scientifically grounded, and more nimble, efficient, transparent, and targeted response that respects the unique needs and input of patients, populations, and providers. Every one of the overreaching policies during the pandemic, from lockdowns to school closures to masks and vaccine mandates to or passports, received its supposed legal justification from the state of emergency declared and renewed by the HHS Secretary and Donald Trump. Fuck off. Tellingly, however, the threshold for what constitutes a public health emergency, how many cases, hospitalization, deaths, was never defined. Of course not, dipshit. You can't fucking define that kind of thing. Being too literal. See, this is that literal, non-literal thing that we talked about at the very beginning of the stream. They want it to be literal, and then they want the spirit of the law when they want it. They want the letter of the law when they want it. And they will jump back and forth between them. So he's complaining that it didn't follow the letter of the law. But the spirit was respected, but not the letter. For the sake of the democratic accountability, we must know with clarity what will trigger the next emergency declaration, and just as important, what will trigger its end. No, that's stupid. That's very, very, very stupid. God dang, it's just dumb. Putting a hard mathematical number on what is and what isn't an emergency is stupid. What if it's one human being under an emergency? Is it not an emergency? What if it's one human being over? It is an emergency? That's insane. You're full of shit, Roger. Goal number 5, instituting greater transparency, accountability, and oversight. The next administration should guard against the regulatory capture of our public health agencies by pharmaceutical companies, insurers, hospital conglomerates, and related economic interests. That sounds like socialism, Roger. That these agencies are meant to regulate. We must erect robust firewalls to mitigate these obvious financial conflicts of interest. Man, this sounds like socialism. I'm on board. All national institutes of health, centers for disease control, prevention of Food and Drug Administration, regulators should be entirely free from private biopharmaceutical funding in this realm. Public-private partnerships is a euphemism for agency capture, a thin veneer for corporatism. Funding for agencies and individual government research must come directly from the government with a robust congressional oversight. I'm okay with this. This is, unless he has some weird thing in this paragraph, I'm on board. We must shut and lock the revolving door between government and big pharma. Regulators should have a long cooling off period in their contracts. 15 years would not be too long. That prevents them from working for companies they have regulated. Similarly, pharmaceutical companies' executives should be restricted from moving from industry into positions within regulatory agencies. I don't mind this. This one I kind of disagree with. If you worked in a pharmaceutical company and then you want to go to work for the government, I kind of okay with that. You're taking a pay cut, first of all. And hopefully you're not bending the rules so that the company you just left can make more money. I can see that being an issue, but we need experts, and those experts are in the companies that are doing the thing. Finally, HHS should adopt metrics across the agency that can objectively determine the extent to which the agency's policies and programs have achieved desired health and welfare outcomes, not agency outputs. What is not measured is not achieved. That's very authoritarian of you, but all right, whatever. So yeah, this is their plans for the HHS. Let's real quick go over them again. Number 1, anti-abortion Nazi shit. Number 2, empowering patient choices and provider autonomy. The patient will get to choose where to die, and the provider will get the autonomy to shut your ass down for political reasons. Number 3, promoting stable and flourishing married families. Some more Nazi shit. Number 4, preparing the next health emergency, which it's fine. I don't think there's anything specifically bad about this one. And number 5, I'm kind of on board for. So I'm being fair here, I think. I'm reading the Republicans' plans. This isn't their Twitter feed. This isn't them telling me what they feel about how people ought to act in certain ways. This is literal policy. 3 of them were Nazi shit, 1 of them was mediocre, and 1 of them was okay. I'm not just shooting down every single thing they say. They bring me a policy, I will look at it, I will determine whether or not it's a good idea, and then I will tell you my opinion on it. This isn't just, hey, a Republican wrote this, so we hate it. If a Republican tells you the sky is blue, you don't immediately doubt them. I mean, you kind of doubt them, but you double check. So that's what I did there. I double checked. 3 of them are Nazi shit, and 1 of them is mediocre, and 1 of them's okay. So that is the Republican book report for this week. What is the next chapter? So the next chapter, and there are more pages to this, but it is specifically like individual, like here's what this group ought to do, here's how this group ought to be structured, here's who's in charge of this group and shit like that. So the next chapter is Department of Housing and Urban Development. I'm going to read this beforehand so that I can determine if it's super boring, and then we might skip it because it's boring. Interior is boring. Department of Justice is kind of interesting, so we might just skip down to Chapter 17 for the DOJ next week, or the week after, whenever I get around to it. So I'll read through those boring chapters. If they're boring, I won't bring them up, or I'll just point out the individual highlights. But because that one's written by Ben Carson, who is going to put me to sleep as I read it. Ben Carson is an idiot, and he got his job in the Department of Housing and Urban Development because urban is a dog whistle word for black people. And Donald Trump only knew one at the time. Actually, he knew two, but Herman Cain died going to a Trump rally. So he had to pick the only black person he knew to be in the urban area. He thought that it was just about black people. So he picked Ben Carson. Ben Carson's super boring, super unintelligent. He's a brain surgeon, but it's not quite as complicated as you might think. Ben Carson, very dumb, very bad guy, will just ramble on forever about boring shit. And that's my job. So we may skip that chapter. I'll read them over, see if there's anything going on in there. And that, I think, is it for today. I appreciate everybody who came by. I appreciate all the viewers. I appreciate all the chatters. Oh, hi. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. The algorithm loves it when you watch it all the way to the end of the video. If you want to keep the algorithm happy, and I know you do, press the subscribe button, press the thumbs up button, leave a comment, tell me what you're thinking, tell me what you're feeling, and let's all keep that algorithm happy. Thanks. Have a good day.